Hi, my name's Paul Cresswell. Welcome to Paul's Tackle Reviews. The purpose of this channel is to give you information and tackle reviews from stuff that's been out on the bank, tried and tested by an unbiased, unsponsored angler, and that's me. Today I'm going to talk about something that gets mentioned all the time, and that's balanced tackle. And some people get this and some people don't get it, and I'm going to give you my take, my understanding, what I use, so you can get an idea. I'm also going to take you through a couple of scenarios of unbalanced tackle. Hopefully you can understand what I'm saying. We're talking about pole fishing here today, so I'm talking about balancing elastics, line, hooks, and the hook size to some extent as well. I think generally speaking, if you use a lighter line and a lighter hook, you get more bites. It doesn't always happen like that, but certainly a lot of the time fishing finer gets more bites. And Andy Bennett did a video, and his view is that your bait sat there and the fish is sucking in your bait, and they're going to feel more resistance from a heavy hook. They're also going to feel more resistance if the line is stiffer and less supple. So lighter lines are more supple, give a more natural fall. Lighter hooks, obviously the fish will feel that much less. Let me just quickly talk about elastic, and I love hybrid elastic. Now, when I started, and I'm old, a very long time ago, we all used a solid elastic, and a number 8 was the strongest that we could get hold of at that time, the black number 8. We then got hollow elastics, which did change things, and they stretched more than solid elastics. They didn't wear as well, but they were a big revolution, especially with the advent of puller kits. So you can use a lighter, stretchier elastic and land bigger fish by shortening the length of elastic that you've got in your puller kit. Hybrid then came along, and this to me offers the best of both worlds. So it initially has the stretch of a hollow elastic, but it does power up more quickly. And sometimes with a hollow, you can find yourself and you'd have tons of elastic out and you wouldn't really be in control of the fish. As more elastic comes out with a hybrid, so it kind of stiffens up and gives you more pulling power as well. In terms of the brands I've used, and I've used the following: I've used Gorilla, I've used Newfish Zip, Preston Duraslip, Matrix Slick, ProGen, Drennan Powerpull, Nick Gilbert, and Map Solid Core. So I've tried an awful lot. And the first thing I want to say before you always get somebody put this on the forum, they're all the same, they all come out the same factory. They are not all the same. And if you want to see proof, do a search for Average Angler, who is a guy with a YouTube site, and he did lots of tests last year, and he proved that even at the same diameters and the same so-called rating, they were different. So they're not all the same. I've settled on the Map Hybrid, and the main reason is the performance. I think it is exactly what I want. The difference between the grades is fairly uniform. I've used it now for 18 months and I think it's fantastic. I also think it's got better longevity than some of the other ones I've used. And at £8 for 6 meters, I think it's terrific value. But just because it's good value doesn't mean I'd use it. If there was a better one out there that cost a bit more, then I would swap. I do recommend with hybrid elastics that you stick to one brand. So they're not the same. So you might get a 10-12 in one brand and a 12-14 in another brand, and they could be almost the same, or there could be a big gap between them. If you use one brand, you get used to the variation between the different ones. And I use it right from the 4 to 6, right up to the 16 to 18. So why do we lose fish? And there's a number of reasons, and quite often we pull out of fish, so we didn't get a good hook hold. Maybe the hook's too small, maybe the elastic's too stiff, so there was no give and it just pulled it out. We sometimes, inevitably, the line snaps, maybe the elastic's too harsh, or the line isn't strong enough for that particular strength of fish that you're using. Sometimes, and this happens increasingly less frequently nowadays, the hook can open up a little bit, and that can reduce the hold and you can pull that out. The elastic snapping is something that I believe only happens when the elastic isn't in good condition. And New Fish did a video where they tried to snap elastics and they were pulling and exerting all kinds of pressure, and hybrid elastic in good condition is very unlikely to snap. The final one is you break your pole, and I've seen people doing this where they haven't got it rigged up right, and it's put too much stress on the pole and they've lost the fish, and they've probably lost a couple of sections as well. So I'm going to put some examples here just to explain unbalanced tackle, and then at the end I've got some tables where I set out, hopefully clearly, what I use for balanced tackle between the line, the hook and the elastic. So here's the first unbalanced one, and as I said, in the early days, 8 elastic was a big heavy elastic. So if you've got that in your mind, you might think, oh, a 10-12 elastic, that'll land good fish, a 10-12 hybrid. An 020 hook length with a 14 XSH hook, and you're going for big carp. Now, this is unbalanced only in the elastic. The hook length and the hook is a really good choice for going for big carp. But if you've got a 10 to 12 elastic, and you hook a big carp, you will see lots of elastic out there. Every chance they could bottom out, and breaking an 020 hook length is difficult. So then you're at danger, if you bottom out, of breaking the pole or breaking a top kit. So that's the first example. The second example is I'm going for carp in the kind of 4 to 10 pound region. So good fish. I've got a 14 to 16 hybrid elastic. I've got an 016 hook length, and my hook is a 16 Drennan Maggot Plus. And the unbalanced part of this setup is the hook. For fish in that size, that elastic is perfect. That hook length is ideal for fish in that size, and you will really struggle to break it with those two. The problem here is the hook is too lightweight. A 16 Maggot Plus hook, as good a hook as it is, isn't designed for use with 016 lines, and it will either open up under extreme pressure, or the whipping at the top will start to work loose, because it is quite a fine hook and you've got quite a thick line going on it. So the unbalanced part there is the hook choice. The final one is I'm talking about fishing for good sized skimmers, maybe an odd small carp mixed in there. And you've got a 6 to 8 hybrid elastic, you've got an 016 hook length, and you've got a Drennan Silverfish sized 18 hook. And the problem here is the hook length. The line is far too thick. So if you're fishing for silvers and small carp, you you will benefit from using finer line and getting a good presentation. An 016 hook length in this setup is far too heavy for a 6 to 8 elastic. You can easily change this rig and not lose any more and probably get more bites if you changed it to an 010 or an 012 hook length. You will certainly get better presentation. So in this case, the choice of hook length diameter is the problem. So I've got two screenshots now I'm going to put in front, and I'm going to talk through those. And the first one is talking about elastics and what kind of fish that you're going for. So if I can just get to that. So what I'm talking about here is full length top kits. I'm not talking about shallow 1.8 meters. My full length top kit is 2.45 meters. Most of the top brands are 2.4 to 2.5 meters, and I think that's the perfect length. So I've listed down the side there the elastics that I use. I've also put the diameter on, and you can then kind of compare brands. Bear in mind what I said earlier, they're not all the same, but the MAP Hybrid 4 to 6 is the same diameter as Duraslip number 5. So whatever the middle is of the MAP is the same, and they're very similar. I've used both. I think the MAP in the lighter grades is slightly softer than the Duraslip, but this will give you some idea. Maybe you're a Duraslip user or you're using one of the other brands. Now, what I will say is with all of those elastics there, even the Hybrid 4 to 6, I've landed a double figure fish. So what you don't do when you go fishing is gear yourself up for the biggest fish you're likely to catch. You gear yourself up for your target species and what you think is going to make the mainstay of your catch. And then if you've got balance tackle, you've got a fair chance of landing something bigger, especially with a nice hybrid elastic with a bit of stretch. So 4 to 6 is general silvers fishing, 6 to 8 is good silvers, skimmers, winter F1, 8 to 10, I think it's good skimmers, F1 summer, excellent elastic and small carp. The 10 to 12 is a real catch-all, and it's one of my favourites because you still get a bit of elastic coming out on the smallish skimmers, but you can land a double figure fish. It's got a huge range of what you can get out and a real mixed bag. The 2 metre is carp 2 to 10 pound. That's your target species. You won't go far wrong with that. The 14 to 16 gives you a bit more strength, so you can target carp 3-4 pound up to low doubles. The 16 to 18 I use if I'm after big fish and there aren't any snags, because hybrid elastic does stretch, so you can lose control of the fish at times. And then I use a MIDI 18 to 20 solid. This is my bagging elastic for big fish, where you need to control the fish. So you might have some snags, you might have some brushes, there might be some lilies. You want to be in control of the fish. Now let me move on to matching them up, and I've tried to do a table here to explain it, but at the top there, and I did a video a couple of weeks ago on my hook length boxes and what I carry. If you want to look at that, it'll take you through all the hooks and the hook lengths, what lengths I carry, etc. But basically, if I'm fishing 010, I'm fishing an Acolyte silverfish hook. If I'm fishing 012, I've got their Maggot Plus. If I'm fishing 014, 016, I'm using the Drennan Carp Pellet. And 020, I'm using the Preston XSH. And it's worth noting there that the smaller hooks are to the lighter lines. There is no point using a size 20 hook, even a really strong one, tied to 020 line. You just won't get the hook pull when you need to put a lot of pressure on. If you're fishing 020 line, you're fishing for big fish. If you fish that with a tiny little size 20 hook, you will pull out a fish and you won't get the hook hold. So the hooks kind of go up in size as you go down the list. So in the table, across the top, I've got the hook lengths that I use. I've then put underneath a reminder of the hooks I use, and the elastics are down the side. And what I've put in each column is a yes or a no as to whether I'd use that. So an 010 hook length I think can be used with a 4 to 6, a 6 to 8 or an 8 to 10. Now you'd have to be a little bit more careful on the 8 to 10, but it's something I've used in winter quite a lot. You'll see there that some are underlined, and these are what I personally think is the optimum. So I think an 010 with a 6 to 8 silverfish hook is perfect for small fish, and I've actually caught on 010 and a 6 to 8 a 16-pound carp, and it took an awful long time to get in, but you're in with a shout. What I wouldn't do is use an 010 any higher than an 8 to 10, because I think your risk is that you're going to snap the line. You've got some imbalance there. Going on to 012, the Maggot Plus, that's a 6 to 8, an 8 to 10, a 10 to 12. And the optimum one is the 8 to 10. And my winter carp mixed fishery setup will be the 8 to 10 with an 012 and a Maggot Plus. And again, I've landed double figure carp, but you can get anything in on that setup. The fish fight less at that time of year. Equally, in summer on an F1 venue fishing on the deck, I would have exactly the same, an 8 to 10 with a Maggot Plus and an 012. Moving on with the heavier lines, so the 014, I think you've got 10 to 12, 12 to 14, 14 to 16. The 016, you can go 12 to 14, 14 to 16 and 16 to 18. And with the 020, there's no point using it any lighter than 16 to 18 or the midi solid. And if you're using 020 on a 12 to 14, all you're doing is worsening your presentation and you're not going to get more fish out. If you want to go fairly heavy, use an 016 on your 12 to 14, that won't snap. So why do you need to go any heavier? So that's my take, and I'm hoping a few people go, yeah, I think that's roughly where I am. We've all got our own brands and our own preferences. I'm hoping there's also some people where a little light bulb's gone on and they think, I get this now. I get why I keep snapping the hook length, or my hook length opens, or I can't get the big fish in, because you haven't chosen a balanced setup. As always, if you've got any comments or questions, put them below. I'd be really interested to see whether people think this is roughly what they use, or they've got some experience of others. Maybe put your experiences of other hybrid elastics and what you think the tolerances are. If you want to give me a like and subscribe, that's great. I've got more videos on the way. There's over 70 videos now, lots of views, plenty out there for you to look at. Until next time, tie lines.